across the street to go into that Mexican school. And so my father had to go and speak to him and tell him, well, it's such an injustice. But no, they did not want to join in.
Undeterred, Gonzalo Mendez turned the fan.
So that's a 10-minute clip, but this is only a 20-minute presentation, so we're not going to listen to the whole thing.
Okay, next we have the National School Lunch Act, which was proposed by Richard B. Russell in 1944. His goal, or 1946, his goal was to combat the problem of malnutrition in schools, and the secondary purpose was to encourage domestic consumption of American agricultural products. Local schools ended up providing lunches to children who could end up going hungry without school. And here I have a picture of President Truman signing off on the act. And I'll read what the act states. I hereby declare to the policy of Congress as a measure of national security to safeguard the health and well-being of the nation's children and to encourage the domestic consumption of nutritious agricultural commodities and other food by assisting the states through grants and aid and other means in providing an adequate supply of food and other facilities for the establishment, maintenance, operation, and expansion of nonprofit school lunch programs.
Okay, so here we have another public school case. On one side you have the Champaign Council of Religious Education, along with the Champaign Educational Board, or Board of Education. And Champaign is not a beverage, it is a location in Illinois in this case. And then on the other side you have Vashti McCollum, and the question here was, did the Champaign Board of Education violate the First Amendment's establishment clause by allowing the Religious Council, which was composed of Catholic, Roman Catholic, Jewish, and Protestant believers? They were offering voluntary religious classes at the public school venue, and although they were still voluntary and students who did not want to attend them were required to go to another location in the public school to pursue secular studies, the court, or Vashti McCollum, believed that they were taking advantage of the public school venue, which was paid for by taxpayers for their purposes and not for the tax-paid schools' purposes. So the ruling of the court said that yes, it did violate the establishment, or the First Amendment's establishment clause, because they were using the public school venue and regular school classrooms for voluntary religious classes. So this case, the ruling of this case, created a barrier between religious activities at public schools and secular studies at public schools.
In 1946, a black woman by the name of Ada Lois Sewell applied to the law school at the University of Oklahoma, which was at the time the only taxpayer-supported law school in the state. She was very qualified, but she was denied on account of her race. She applied to the District Court of Cleveland County for a writ of mandamus, which would force the University of Oklahoma to accept her, but the District Court denied her request. She appealed to the Supreme Court of Oklahoma, which upheld the choice of the District Court. And she made her way to the Supreme Court of the United States, which overturned their decision and said that the state of Oklahoma needed to provide equal instruction for her. The key of this was they said equal instruction. So the state of Oklahoma created Langston University School of Law and told her to go there. And it was a lengthy legal battle to prove that Langston Law School was not as good as the University of Oklahoma. In 1949, she was finally admitted, but she was forced to sit separately in the classroom as well as in the cafeteria. And but even though she was forced to sit separately, the students and teachers were kind to her. This is her and the Dean of Admissions at the University of Oklahoma.
M&Ms were invented in 1941 by Mars and Murray, where they get their name, M&M. And they originally had no M printed on the candy, and they were colored brown. And they were in plastic tubes until 1948. They were very, very popular for soldiers because they did melt and they were easy to carry around. And it's seen in the picture on the right, it says now 100% at war, and it was sort of used as a propaganda thing in World War II.
Rice Krispie treats were invented in 1941 by a Kellogg's employee named Mildred Day. They became so popular that soon in 1945 the recipe for them was printed in the back of all the Rice Krispie boxes. Rice Krispies themselves were invented earlier in 1921, but the treats weren't invented until 41. They're made with Rice Krispies, melted marshmallows, and butter. And they weren't sold pre-made until 1995. And we have some Rice Krispie treats in the back for everybody.
Yes.
I'm interested now.
Lester Borchardt and a team at General Mills worked very hard because they wanted to find a new product to sell. And originally, Borchardt's boss told them to stop working because they were putting too much money into trying to create a new cereal product. But they didn't, and on May 1st, 1941, they first introduced Cheerios. And Cheerios was the first oat-based, ready-to-eat cold cereal. And the Cheerios was originally named Cheery Oats, but then they had to change their name because of a trade name dispute with Quaker Oats. And so they chose Cheerios because of the cereal's O-shaped pieces. And in the early 1940s, the company created a character named Cheerio Leary as Cheery's brand mascot. And this character was used in both animated form and printed form and was very popular with children.
Chicago-style pizza.
How's that?
This was invented at an Uno Pizzeria, so known as Uno's Pizza, in 1943. And this was different from your average Italian pizza. It had bigger crust and a lot more ingredients. They say the recipe was invented by the owner, but about 10 years later, an article came out that said the chef invented it, so it's really unknown exactly who did.
U.S. Army rations. So obviously, almost everything in the 1940s was rationed because of the war. And for the U.S. Army, the troop had several different kinds of rations. On the top, you have B rations, which were used, or which were packaged with canned or preserved ingredients, and then you would take the ingredients that were in there and you would cook them. C rations were prepackaged, pre-prepared food so that you could just eat it. This is basically where you get the modern-day MRE. D rations were basically a high-energy chocolate bar. Colonel Paul Logan went to the Hershey Company and came up with this idea with the chemist and president of Hershey. And he had 4 requirements. The bar had to weigh 4 ounces. It had to be able to withstand high temperatures. It had to have high energy, and it had to taste slightly better than a boiled potato. And then finally, the K ration is a daily combat ration that includes breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it was a pre-prepared food that the soldier could take with him all day. It was common among airmen because they might not be landing the rest of the day. Not pictured here is the A ration, which is fresh, frozen, or refrigerated food. And that was obviously very important for troop morale because it's a change from all this high salt preserved food.
We still have A rations today, and the other version is MREs, which replace C rations. By the way, do you know why they had to taste slightly better than a potato, even if it's a chocolate bar?
Because it contains oats.
Well, mostly because they knew that if it tasted too good, soldiers would just grab it and eat the whole thing at once, and it was supposed to be split over 3 meals for an entire day that you could carry in your pocket. Awesome.
Okay, so next we have Tupperware, which was developed in 1946 by Earl Tupper and Brownie Wise, and yes, that is a person, in Massachusetts. And when Earl Tupper was kind of experimenting, he discovered that polyethylene was a plastic formed in 1942 was what he was looking for to produce Tupperware. And then he partnered up with Brownie Wise, who was from Florida. She was a mother. And they produced Tupperware. And they met with distributors and created the Tupperware Party, pictured on the bottom right corner.
Aluminum foil was invented in 1947 by a company called the United States Tin Foil Company, which was owned by Richard Samuel Reynolds.
Citizen rations were the